Adam, welcome back to the show.
Good to be here. Round two. Let's
And
do it.
it's been a busy 18 months, hasn't it?
Yeah, really busy 18 months. I guess lots of change and heading in a different direction, specifically over the last 9 months, I guess. But yeah, it's good. It's been busy, learning lots, gaining new perspective, which you enjoy a bit of that as well. So good to be back on, and I guess just having a chat about all that's happened.
Yeah, and I was telling you in the car on the way here that we finished up last time with me asking you what would need to happen for you to consider the next 5 years a success. And some of the things we were speaking about, of course, were around the online education stuff. You were doing rugby players, maybe exiting or getting a sale within some of the businesses like Puresport and Zappit you're involved in. But I think the main thing we want to talk about is this new baby of yours that you've managed to find and grow and really put all that time and effort into with Notox.
Yeah, I guess, back then when we last spoke, it was like, I guess I maybe never even alluded to it that much, but there was definitely some things like on my radar that I was kind of potentially going to step into and explore at some point. I think when we last spoke, I was probably not long back from Chicago in the US. So I was kind of then trying to figure out what I was doing. Like I'd just come out of professional coaching, did a year of professional coaching, enjoyed that, but like in the back of my mind, I was thinking, I don't know if I fancy moving around the world and, dotting between different countries every time you've got to move club. I'd done enough of that as a rugby player, so I was kind of probably setting my target on something new. So yeah, I think that time there was probably a bit of uncertainty for me, but I had sort of built some experience up over, through my rugby career with Puresport, and then I think it was about 9 months I did with Zappit, the tech company, just to help them with a few things, and then after that, I guess I think it was about 3 or 4 months where I had a really quiet time where I just sort of, I was hitting the gym, I was eating well, I was really just focusing on myself. And that was the point where I think those kind of ideas and potential new businesses or, concepts started to kind of come into my mind. So yeah, there's been a lot that's happened, and I think it's been a kind of lesson that, in a short space of time, things can really change drastically. And yeah, I never thought I was going to go down the skincare route. I was probably never that interested in skincare, but I think, based off my experiences that I'd had through the game with my own skin, it kind of does make sense to some degree that, I'm interested in health, I'm interested in wellness products, wellness brands, wellness companies. So I guess after what I'd been through, it was a kind of, not an obvious step, but I think when you come across something that you think can be a really good new solution for people, someone like me is going to see the opportunity there.
That's right. And I guess even to think about some things we were talking about before you found Notox, we had a day in the gym where you brought the caffeine gum with you and you were like, I'm experimenting with this. Because again, it was something you were thinking about from a performance and a wellness perspective. And when you've got a personal interest in these spaces, you try different things for yourself and you see what might work for the general pop. But again, as we've spoken about before, the vehicle you choose really matters in order to be a success, and that particular product was one that didn't quite have the legs.
Yeah, I was being really specific around like what the decision was going to be. There was probably 4 or 5 potential avenues to go down there. The caffeine gum was one of them. So basically, it was a caffeine gum with L-theanine in it. A product that's pretty popular in the US. There's a brand called Neurogum. You might have heard of them, but they're huge in the US. Over the last kind of 18 months, particularly sort of blew up over there. And when I was in the US, I'd used that product. And like I'd used caffeine gum and stuff here before, but this is another level. This is a really, really good health supplement product. Used it before games, used it sometimes before like delivering training sessions, stuff like that. Really kind of dials you in a better, higher level than just normal caffeine. So was interested in that, but long story short, the whole manufacturing process of getting it made with the regulations here, it was going to be too tricky. And yeah, I guess that after that kind of realization, I spent probably 2 or 3 months going back and forth trying to get that made, but wasn't to be. And that's almost where I sort of fell into the next. Well, what's number 2? What's number 3? And started to explore those. So yeah, I think it was probably a blessing in disguise that one never worked out, because now I think we're onto something that could be really big, and we're only just kind of scratching the surface with it as well. We went into the market with the sort of beef tallow and raw honey products, but I think where we'll end up finishing will be quite a drastically different
products,
place. Similar to Puresport in some regard. We started off with CBD products essentially, and then we started to move into maybe more things like turmeric and black pepper capsules for anti-inflammatory. And you now look at the product range now, it's drastically different than where we started. And that's just the evolution of, keeping up to speed with the game and what's working and developing from there. So, plenty more to come with that.
Yeah, the caffeine gum was an interesting one because much like when you were launching Puresport in the CBD, it's a novel food. So the UK legislation around it is so difficult to break into the market. Whereas if you'd launched it in the US, there's a lot less barriers to entry, a lot less red tape to cut through. Yeah,
100%. The US is a much easier place to launch products and start businesses, specifically in the sort of health supplement world, just because of the regulations there. There's the sort of novel food law here, so foods that haven't been consumed in large amounts before whatever year it is, 1990 or something it is, are categorized as a novel food.
Such an arbitrary cutoff, isn't it?
It is. It's things like things that, like the one ingredient that I was looking at putting in the caffeine gum was a derivative that comes from tea leaves. We've been drinking tea for thousands of years, maybe I don't know how long, like a long time, but it was one of those ones that came into that category. So yeah, it's it can be a challenging realization, especially if you've maybe launched the product and then you find that, oh God, we've got this stock here and we've come under this category. That's happened to the businesses before. But yeah, I think even with Puresport now, obviously not selling CBD anymore through the website or anything like that, it becomes too challenging to navigate that side of it. Puresport were completely compliant with the novel food thing, but it's other things like the advertising, Facebook ads that were like becoming a problem.
There's certain
with
words
CBD
that are banned as well, aren't there?
The regulations that they have, that's the same category as weed and THC, so you can't use that word. So anytime that you run an ad to your website and Facebook picks up that on that website, there's 100 other products, but there's one CBD product, we'll shut your ads down. So it's not really worth it.
This band on my wrist is a movement that I need to tell you about. Bands for Brothers. A movement started by a dad who, raising his two sons, realised that he wanted people to speak more about their well-being and, of course, their mental health. It's about breaking the stigma of speaking up, sharing what you're going through, seeking support from others, and I think that's something that's been a theme throughout so many episodes of the podcast, where people need to find community who are like-minded, who can support them and bring them forward. The bands are the first thing, the clothing drops have just started, but there's some community events coming down the road as well. So please stay tuned, hit the link in the show notes to follow Bands for Brothers on Instagram, and you can hit the link in their bio to get yourself a band or one of the new t-shirts too. One of the things we spoke about when it came to the gum, for example, and why beef towel was a better route to go down was the manufacturing costs and the acquisition costs around customers. What are some of those considerations that come into the fore when you're considering a successful ecom brand?
Yeah, I think this is a big one. Like, people will often ask me like, oh, I've got this idea. Do you think it's good? Do you think it will work? And this is like really only something I think that I've probably learned more about in the last year. But long story short, like if you have a product that costs you, let's say £5 to buy, to get manufactured or to make it yourself, in our case, we make the products, and you're selling that product for 15 or 20 quid, generally speaking, on Facebook for the advertising costs, you need to pay Facebook around, if our ads are killing it, it might be 10 quid, right? If our ads are doing okay, it could be 20 quid. If our ads are really poor, it might be 25 quid. So based off of that, the margins just don't work. It doesn't add up. So, that's the first thing I think you have to look at when you have an idea, you have a product that you want to take to market. If you want to scale aggressively and you want to start hitting numbers that are large, quick, you need to make sure that you have that built into your margin. There really is no other way to do it. You can use other platforms, TikTok, Google Ads and stuff like that, but Facebook is probably the most kind of well-traveled path when it comes to scaling products. We were very clear that when we started Notox, we needed to know that we had that ability there to sort of run the ads and be able to do it effectively. So it wouldn't have worked with the caffeine gum, long story short. Like the cost of the product.
There's got to be enough fat in the deal for you to make a profit. And I did a sales special episode recently recapping on some of the stuff I've done the last couple of years, and one of the lessons from it was profit is vanity. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity. Mm-hmm. And so many businesses launch and they think, oh, well, I can sell hundreds of these gums for 15 quid a pop, but if your cost of acquisition, your cost of the actual materials itself start to outweigh that, you very quickly don't have a business. You just have a hamster wheel of cash going round and round and round, and you're never able to make something from it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And you know, if you want to go and sell in shops, that's fine. There's probably a way there that you can, but with the direct to consumer, like and ecom specifically, it's just, you need to make sure that you have those things in place. And it can be a tough lesson to learn if you don't. But yeah, it's a tricky place to do business at the moment in the UK. You know, I've got many friends that are doing similar things in different countries. People in Dubai, people living in Portugal, people living in Cyprus, and you know, the ecom sort of space has become more challenging in the UK. I think predominantly because the cost of acquisition on Facebook is high, but also just having to, you know, equate things like VAT and, you know, national insurance and stuff like that, and a slightly higher tax than they might have in other countries. So yeah, these are all things that you learn as time goes, but you just need to make sure that you've got these things dialed in, because like ultimately you're trying to build something that is a well-oiled machine. It performs well. It's not something that you just want to run for 6 months and then exit the game and walk off. Like you're trying to build something that needs to be able to stand up against the pressures that are coming in against it. So yeah, that's been my mindset with this, is that how can we build a really, really efficient business with strong products, and that's the aim. That's really the aim. That's what we're trying to do here. There's different ways you can do it. You see a lot of ecom businesses, and there's no right way to do it or wrong way to do it, but you see a lot of businesses now, especially in the UK, is, you know, stepping down the kind of the funding route and getting heavily funded before you go and, you know, step into the first 2 or 3 years, because, you know, it's very hard to make it work without that. But I've got, you know, I've not really mentioned this like publicly or anything, but I do want to try and challenge myself to try and do this as leanly as possible and see where we can get it to. And it maybe at some point there is the option to bring on investment and to really put the foot down from there. But quite interested to see, just from a kind of just an experimental point of view, like in this climate, what can be done? Where can you get with kind of bootstrapping it? And, you know, what was it? Happy to say it, I think something like maybe 15 to 20k I'd put in to get Notox going. It's still a large amount of money, you know. It's not a small amount, but you know, I think if you can do that and then start to use the money that you're generating to actually then build the business, that's a good place to be.
It's difficult though, because I know that with the tax environment, with the regulatory environment, with things like NI going up, it makes it difficult for you to grow the business and to take money out of it for your livelihood as well. Yeah. It's very much try and keep feeding the machine. And I think many of the entrepreneurs I've spoken to across the last 5 years on the show who have built something amazing all talk about those early days where it is a case of living a little bit leaner, because the business, we don't want to take anything away from it that might stop it breaking through that next level. Yeah. But it's a shame that we live in an environment where that's the case. And we'd much rather work in an environment where entrepreneurs could build and still maybe earn and improve their lifestyle on the side.
100%. I mean, I literally did not pay myself a penny from the company for the first 6 months, you know, and I was okay with that, because I knew that the environment that we were in was probably, that was going to have to be the case. And, you know, fortunately, you know, I had money away that I could live off, and that was fine. But, you know, that's what you do what you have to do. Like it's all fine and good trying to build something. And then, you know, you say you put yourself on a salary, you pay yourself X amount of money for the first month or two. And then at month 3, you're like, oh my God, I've got no money in the bank. Like, what are we going to do here? And then you need to go down the route of either investing more in yourself or looking at external investment. So I wanted to make sure that I got this business to a place where it was able to support itself before I guess, it's not looking after yourself, but it's, I guess, giving yourself the money that you need to live off, and you can use that as a means of supporting your life. So yeah, that was one of the things that I did. But you know, you've got to do what you got to do to make it work. Yeah,
when you look around at brands maybe taking in funding super early on, do you see that as a mistake, or would you be open to that sort of thing?
It's definitely not a mistake. I think like there's a lot of you need to have experience in this game. There's a lot of things that can go wrong if you don't understand the numbers, if you don't understand the margin. You don't understand how much it costs to acquire a customer and all these things. Like, it can get really complicated. So I think that I still do think that with the right product in the right market at the right time, you can blow something up pretty quickly and turn heads. But you need to align a lot of these key things. Like, it's really a timing game.
You need to get our ducks in a row.
100%. I definitely don't think it's a mistake. Look, I think I've been somebody who's been in the both sides of the investing game. You know, like I've founded companies that have taken investment. I've also invested into a lot of companies myself. Some, most of them private companies. I'm not sitting here saying for a second that my only investments are into private companies. By far, that's not the case. Most of my money is in safe investments. But I think, probably 6 or 7 private investment into companies to this stage of my life. So you begin to learn about the risk and reward on both sides. So it's definitely not a mistake. I think it's something that, once you have a business model that is sustainable and you have a real clear understanding of how that business operates, there's always a time to put the foot down with that, inject a bit of cash into the business so that then you can grow further. And ultimately there's maybe a reward for everybody there. But yeah, I don't think there's a right or wrong approach to it. Sometimes you have to do what you have to do to try and chase your dream.
Yeah, and whatever sits right with you as well, because again, I'm sure we'll speak about all of the identity and mindset stuff that you've done over the past while, but you've got this mission to build it through yourself at this point, and then only consider funding when it feels right for you. Mm-hmm. Whereas I think if somebody maybe hadn't got proof of concept and built to the level that Notox is at already, they might have had to get investors in from a place of scarcity rather than a place of abundance. Whereas I think when you decide to turn on that investment tap, you'll have such strong foundations that it will be on your terms and people will be putting money in a way that you're most comfortable with, rather than maybe taking pieces of the pie that you would rather not give away.
Yeah, 100%. And like we've had multiple people who have shown interest in actually investing into the company at relatively early stages. Maybe people who had used the products, and maybe people who had been involved in like other previous ventures that I'd been involved in. But
and you can see why, because I think it was so visible so quickly.
Yeah. Like
we were joking that if you get hit by a Notox ad once, you're going to see it many times over. And then it's the reviews off the back of it. It's the people that come up and speak to you at the gym, at the Oasis concert you were talking about. And it is very, very visible. So it has all the trappings of this is doing well. And a lot of people realize that and want to get involved.
Yeah, 100%. I laugh and joke about it now. Like, obviously I used to play pro rugby, and like maybe some people knew who I was from that. Maybe occasionally you get stopped in the street. I was never at the level where I'm like Finn Russell or someone like that, who just like obviously is getting pestered all the time in a good way. But obviously it's come a couple of years out of the game. Barely anybody recognises me for rugby, but people obviously do come up and say, "Oh, it's a Notox guy. Good skincare, good skin cream," and all that. So it's funny, but that's the power of, I think, going really aggressive with the ads and trying to get something out there quickly. That's been part of the plan all along. So without that, it would be a completely different story.
Yeah. How important has been organic before the ads got turned on? Did you have an element of let's build the customer base and then turn the ads on, or did we do both at once?
I was like all ads. Like if you look on our Instagram, like there's some stuff on there. Like, we've had kind of affiliations, like even with you and stuff, and like guys like Chris Duncan. And I wanted to do a bit of that because when you start something like this, you obviously want to shape what it's about. You want people to try and understand, like, this is what we're doing here. This is the mission. This is what the products are for. This is what they do. But I was wary, and I think when you're starting the business in the manner that I did, like we never had much money. Like we literally didn't have much money at all. So, where do you spend that money? Do you spend it on, organic content, i.e., getting a videographer, maybe finding some ambassadors to come on board and shoot content with them and then put it on social media? Or do you put that into ads? And, when you put it into ads and you can play the game right, you maybe have an initial budget of 2,000 or whatever, and you make some ads, you make effective ads, and you can start to build that up quickly. And then it's at some point where, you know, what's the return on investment here, the organic, or if you do the ads right. And then when you get to the point where you're big enough and maybe the company's starting to sustain itself a little bit more, that at that point is probably for us when we'll start to invest more heavily into the organic side of stuff. Again, there's no right way. Like, you know, I look at Puresport, and it's like one of the most powerful brands in the wellness space
in the UK by a long way. Yeah,
absolutely phenomenal, and that's what they have done so well. They've built this powerful brand that you know, you go up to someone on the street, you know this brand, the chances are they would say yes. And that's an amazing way to do it. We've probably focused less on that, but you know, just trying to get the product out there, get it into people's hands, you know, get them leaving reviews and telling us what they think of it, and growing the sort of revenue and sales that way. But yeah, there's different approaches, and that was what made sense to us, and I think that's what allowed us to scale quickly over the last 8 months.
I think that's what's been impressive, and even with the partnership that we did, for example, the content day that you and I did, the content day you did with Chris Duncan, that footage can get used for ads too. Yeah. So you're constantly feeding the machine through what is organic content, but then becomes a paid ad as well, and that also validates the brand too. So I was so impressed by the way that you were building it and the way you were focusing on it. And I guess the updates I was getting every time we maybe had a gym session, we were in the sauna, was like, whoa, this is crazy how quickly it's gaining momentum.
Yeah, I think it was a mixture of a few different things. It was like the product's novel, it's new. You know, people hadn't really heard of it. It's a really, really effective product when people generally use it. And again, it's one of the reasons why I am pretty aggressive in the market. And I had this problem in my own life. I didn't really use moisturizers because from when I was 12 years old, my dad was telling me, you know, use deodorant sparingly. You know, like he knew about a lot of the things that were in these, and I guess
the toxins that come with it.
Yeah, the toxins and I guess the unnecessary chemicals that we're often covering our bodies in every day. So, and I'd had these cuts on my head from rugby, and I probably didn't dress them properly, treat them properly. Luckily, for the most part, they all healed up really well. But I knew that, I guess after the period where I went carnivore, was that, well, why is my skin better than ever now? And it's the fat in the meat. It's the nutrient dense fat that is in this meat that is just an absolute powerhouse for health. These fat soluble vitamins that are in the sort of in tallow or even as ribeye steak, any kind of red meat, truly powerful for the body. And when I started to eat just meat, I was like, why are these changes happening? And then you go down rabbit holes and you realize that, well, that there's something here to this. Maybe that we can, instead of getting people to just eat steak all the time and not eat anything else, maybe we can actually kind of short circuit that, and they can get the benefits of better skin by actually just applying beef tallow and raw honey onto the skin. So that was really that was really it. It was as a personal kind of problem that I had, that I felt like I found a better solution to, that I guess led me down this path. So having experienced what it was like to have that problem and then to have fixed it, I don't mind getting in front of the camera. You've seen me, I'm in so many of the ads. I first seen this done by a guy who had a brand out in the US. I won't mention the brand or anything, but the guy was doing the same thing. He was like, we've got this product that's really good, and he was in a lot of the ads. And I thought, well, you know, we don't have a massive budget to play with here. I could go and find, you know, UGC creators to make ads. I could, you know, go and find ad agencies to create ads for me, or I could just do it myself and see what happens. So I think
you got a real knack for the hook and the call to action in with it as well. Like, yeah, nowadays when you and I talk about some of the things that you've done, and like the sticky poster on the wall, the showing the before and afters, the kind of B-roll footage of you with the cut on your head at rugby, and then the footage of you losing weight through the carnivore and becoming healthier and leaner and meaner and improving on all those different health markers, you can see how well you understood to play the attention game too.
Yeah, and that's really all it is. It's just learning how to play the attention game. Everyone's sitting on their phone scrolling. How do you stop that scroll, and how do you get them watching the video? And there's the art of storytelling. There's so many different ways to do it, but I think you save a lot of cost by doing it yourself, and you know how much you understand it. You know, like when I started doing this at the beginning, like compared to where I'm at now, I understand way more about what's going to work for us, what people might actually watch, what people will find interesting, what styles and angles of ads that we're going to use. I've tried to do it in other ways over the last 8 months, outsourcing some of this stuff to different agencies and things like that. It's never worked. It's never once worked. We literally spent, 15K over 3 months with an ad agency, and I think we made about $2,000 worth of sales.
Directly through their work.
Yeah. So it was just a quick realization for me that that was not going to be a valid path. We were going to have to build something else in our own way. So that's been the approach. But I think I don't know. This is probably just again a bit of my take on it, but I think I don't know how well I would sort of do in a scenario where maybe I was in a business and I didn't fully believe in the product. There's definitely an integrity that it's maybe a strength and a weakness, because
we've spoken about this when it comes to sales. So we were talking about me going full time with the sales coaching. I believe so strongly in the results I can generate, and the testimonials off the back of it are fuel for the fire for me to push more. Yeah. And you were speaking to a mutual friend of ours at the weekend there about, oh, Colin will be great for you. He'll do this, because you know what I've been able to do. In the same way, you believe so strongly in people removing some of those toxic chemicals from their life and putting on a moisturizer that we know can get them a good result. It feels wrong to not shout about it and to not get in front. Whereas I suppose if you were selling snake oil would be the equivalent, and you would feel that that kind of sense of unease. Yeah,
that's exactly it. You want to be transparent and honest about what you're doing, and you want to be providing a good product. That's, for me, I think with Puresport, there was that real sense there that, when I used CBD for the first time, I'm like, oh, this is unbelievable. I'm sleeping better. I feel less anxious. My back pain's eased. And for the last 10 years, every night, I've used that, or 8 years, sorry. Literally, Puresport just obviously stopped selling the CBD. So I got 10 bottles sent up to the house just to keep me going a little bit longer, because genuinely that's a product that I live and die by. I use it every single night. It makes a big difference to my life. And I think when your story and your kind of the path that you've carved reveals these products to you, it's something to be really sensitive to. And not everybody's entrepreneurial in the way they think about things, but for me, when you come across those little golden nuggets, you could call them, it's paying close attention to that, because when you do feel strongly about something, you can really get behind it and you can really push it, and you can feel comfortable pushing it because
it's alignment,
you feel it. It's alignment. It's real kind of alignment.
Yeah, I think, and I've spoken about this in the podcast before, but I got taught this by a guy called Dr. Yusuf Smith, that there's 4 currencies in life. There's money, freedom of time, freedom of location, and there's purpose and fulfillment. And whenever I talk to entrepreneurs, I'm always interested, which of these 4 are you optimizing for? Because if you optimize only for the money, it can be very short-lived. You can be working in a location you hate, you can have no time to yourself, and you might not feel fulfilled at all. Whereas at the moment, we're seeing obviously fiscal success with Notox scaling, but the purpose and fulfillment's really high, because you're excited about talking about something that you know helped you, and then you're seeing all these results from the customers come through. So there's this element of satisfaction from a job well done and this result that you're able to cause for people. Whereas if you were only optimizing for money and maybe you'd sold a product that didn't sit as well with you, or you didn't really care as much about, you might be feeling successful in some ways, but there would be a part missing. Yeah. And I think for longevity of building the brand that you want to build, not necessarily just taking in investor money straight off the bat, you needed to tick that fulfillment box because of all the kind of biohacking and lifestyle changes you've made, going carnivore, losing some of the weight that you had, removing some of the toxic chemicals from all the different stuff that people can talk about. That box being ticked gives you the kind of reassurance that you've maybe found the vehicle to keep going with.
100%. That's the best word to use. It's alignment. Alignment with values, alignment with success, proven concept. The customer feedback thing is massive. But it's blown my mind, to be honest. You know what it's like to use a product yourself and to feel that it's working. But for the amount of reviews that we've had come in over just the space in 9 months, it has been mind blown. So when you see that coming back, I guess it makes it all worth it, and you're pretty pleased with how it's going. But as I said at the start, I think we're scratching the surface of where we could go here. We've got a proven concept, and we've got something that we can work with. But I think where we're at now versus where we could be at in 3 or 4 years' time will be a completely different animal. And yeah, just looking forward to learning all the time. Like, seems to be a process of like, you nail one thing down, you have to learn about the next, you nail that down, and you just keep moving along.
It's like a video game. You unlock the next level.
You're unlocking the next level.
You're up against the next boss.
Yeah, all the time. That's exactly
the final boss.
The final boss, yeah. We'll get him on the podcast next.
I saw him behind the decks at Pasha when I was in Ibiza, and he has to be seen to be believed. He's like a cartoon character with all the different extremities of what it is to be an Essex geezer going to.
It is mental, man. One video blown up like that, and just it's the power of social media, isn't it? Like that's the power of organic. He wasn't paying for any ads, and that just went mad.
Yeah, true. One of the things I wanted to ask about was how important has timing been? Because I believe we're in an age where people are waking up more to the value of some of the ancestral tenets and habits that we had in the past that we'd almost forgotten about in the last 30, 40 years. And we see how unhealthy society's gotten, how fat, how sick, how mentally unwell society's become. And so many people, I say so many, a larger number of people are open to the ideas that like we should strip things back to basics. We should maybe remove some of these toxic fillers from our food. We should maybe remove some of these toxic fillers from the things we put on our skin and on our hair or whatever other orifices in our body. And I think that's really important. And I wonder how glad you are to be creating a product that solves that problem in a time and an era where you've got the likes of maybe RFK in America talking about these things, and more people, the term would be waking up.
Yeah, I think it is that as well. It's like things that are truly beneficial and good generally stand the test of time. Like, what's an example? Can't even think of one off the top of my head, but an example would be that, for hundreds of years, people have used tallow and animal fat to treat their skin. We forgot about it. Literally forgot about it over the last 40, 50, 60 years, because all of a sudden skincare was then, I guess, being mass manufactured, use cheaper ingredients that people can't pronounce, but ultimately are profitable for those that are running companies. But we're moving back to now, I think, a time where maybe certain things that have been done in the world and the manufacturing food systems that haven't served us well, we're now starting to wake up to them. It's as simple as that. I think a lot of it goes back to looking at what's worked in the past. Like, how's our biology evolved? Like, what did we eat? We've been here for the last 60, 80 years living in this civilization that probably looks somewhat similar to when you look outside now. But what about the thousands of years before that? What did we eat? And it was predominantly meat, red meat. There was obviously the agricultural sort of age where we started to eat maybe more oats and things like that. And yeah, I guess I really went down the rabbit hole with trying to understand that. And it was just something that I was just really passionate about. I was like, well, you're learning from these doctors and people that are talking about these things. And I guess for me, it was about just going back to really the fundamentals to try and heal my own body. And then there was a load of insight that came off the back of it, and this was one of them. So yeah, there's lots of things that I guess I've changed in my own life. I mean, just touching on maybe like another thing that I tend to do a bit of now, just like intermittent fasting, just like not eating for a certain amount of time. It's good for some things. Maybe it's not so good for others. If you want to build muscle, maybe it's not good for that. But I've got enough muscle. I'm not looking to build muscle. I'm looking to just maintain. And
I would say your physique looks radically better now than when you played rugby in terms of
way
health.
better. Yeah, much better. There was a bit more meat in the bone back then, and maybe to some degree it served me, because I don't think that now I'd actually be able to play the position that I played at the weight that I'm at. But yeah, it's just learning. Like, I mean, how do we optimize our body? I've got a good friend, Akis, who as well. He is like, guy's from Glasgow. He's just one of the most knowledgeable people I've ever met when it comes to nutrition, to be honest with you, and nutrition that has stood the test of time, not new age nutrition. And he talks about how, literally the whole like breakfast, lunch and dinner were concepts that were driven to us by the food companies that wanted us to eat more of their food. We never really ate food that much. Like, we would maybe eat once a day, maybe we would eat twice a day. Sometimes we might go like 2 or 3 days without any food because we didn't have any. And when you look back at that, and that's where we sort of came from, and when you start to sort of live more in alignment with that versus just constantly consuming and eating all the time, like, your body begins to change effortlessly. You don't even have to try. So there's been a lot of changes for me over the last few years, and who knows where things are going to go moving forward. But I feel like, once you kind of get the fundamentals in place, you don't drift too far away from them.
Yeah, health is wealth, and I think more and more people are waking up to trying to look after themselves and not follow what the average person is. Because the average person in the UK is overweight, walks less than 4,000 steps a day, in debt. They're not in a good spot. Yeah. So let's try and do something that's away from that and different from that. And I think the alignment I had with when you talked to me about Notox in January and you gave me a tub to try for the first time was very much, I was moving away from a lot of different things that I knew were maybe damaging me hormonally. So I wasn't drinking out of plastic, I wasn't heating food in plastic or storing food that I'd cooked in plastic. I got a filter for the water in my tap to try and remove some of the heavy metals and some of the chemicals that were within that. I was spraying aftershave on my clothes rather than on my skin because I knew that it was a hormone disruptor. And then when you were speaking about, well, the skin's the largest organ in the body, what you rub on it in terms of this, well, we won't name the brand, but moisturizer that I was using, on the back of it, 30, 40 different ingredients. Now, I'm sure many of them were benign, but there's a good chance that some of those were potentially hormone disruptors as well when it maybe came to my testosterone or maybe came to other hormones that I don't want to be messing and playing with.
Yeah.
And I'm supplementing Tonka Ali to raise my testosterone. It made total sense to keep going. And I think people don't have to go as far down the rabbit hole as that, but making some of those changes mean that I'm the healthiest and best I've ever been post 30 years old, in the shape that I want to be in, functioning really well with my podcast, with my sales coaching, and feeling great. When we make these swaps, it's nice to see the results
100%.
off the back of it.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree with what you're saying. It's like, these things are important to learn and like all extremely valuable, but just getting it right 80% of the time is good enough. Like we can live in these ways where we're protecting ourselves from all these things and all these like bad things out there, and
it can make you anxious as well if you're that way inclined. Yeah, but I think it's optimizing for the dial movers.
Optimizing massively. My whole mindset is like, if I can try and get 80% of it right, that's enough. That's enough to maintain. You're eating the right stuff 80% of the time. 20% of the time you can go and do what you want and enjoy life. And we're here to enjoy life. I think constantly, often, I'm guilty of it more than anybody, but we're just constantly living from this space, which is, we're building for the future all the time. We're building for the future. What about right now? It's like we can enjoy life right now. We deserve to enjoy it right now. So I think maybe part of my journey over the last 18 months specifically with this stuff is like, I can remember when I went carnivore, I was like 6 months black and white carnivore. It was like, I'm eating ribeye and I'm eating eggs and I'm eating butter, salt, nothing else. And that was a really good thing for me to do because it taught me so much. But I think as time has kind of drawn out, and maybe after 6 months, we got to a point where it was like, well, why don't you start integrating some stuff back in there? If you've got a wedding or whatever, maybe you can go and have a drink and whatever and these things. So I think getting 80% right is something that's healthy to strive for. And equally, when you don't get it right, I think it's important to just keep an eye on that inner dialogue and see what happens there, because there's a lot of teaching in that as well.
If you're new to the podcast, make sure you've hit the subscribe or the follow button on whatever platform you're listening on so I can keep getting fantastic guests just like this one. I'm a fan of what you did though in terms of going the whole hog at the start, because then you get the maximum results from it and it gives you proof of concept. And then I think you earn the right to strip back. And one of the concepts I speak about in the podcast is you want to raise your ceiling of what you're capable of, but you want to raise your floor as well. So at that point in time, you raised your ceiling really high in terms of when you were perfect. But now you know that your floor is also way higher up in terms of before your kind of like your nutrition was maybe 50%.
Yeah.
Now it's 80%.
Yeah.
But you know that if you really wanted to dial in for a holiday or you had some really big projects coming up where you know you need to be perfect, you would go up to 100%. But when we get those opportunities to really go all in on something, we then earn the right to, after a while of seeing the results, be like, okay, well, I kind of know that I can get results from doing the Pareto principle. 80% of the results come from the work of doing that properly.
It's so true. You need, it's so helpful to go kind of in deep with it, because then you gain that perspective. There is no doubt about it, right? When I ate carnivore for 6 months straight, and once we got 6 weeks in, that's the most optimized I've ever been in my life. Sleep, mood, just mind, everything was just absolutely like at peak. But the question that I have to ask myself then is that, is that how I want to live my life all the time? And no, that's not how I want to live my life all the time. I think if you do, maybe some people are okay with it or whatever. And, I know a guy, Dr. Anthony Chafee, actually had him on my podcast way back. And, he is something like 6 or 7 years now, just it's meat every day. He doesn't eat anything else. And that's how he likes to live. But for me, it's like, I don't know, I want to have a bit of flexibility there. And I think going all in with it like we did, I gained that perspective of what it could be like to be completely optimized. And if you want to go back there at any point, you can. Say you hit a health crisis or something and, I don't know, you get some anxiety out of the blue or something like that. Well, you know that, when you did that,
it's a big lever to pull on.
You go back there. That was something that you learned. So, yeah, big fan of optimizing. But I think something that's become a bit more like apparent in my own life is that, I'm really good at building and living for the future. I can do it. I can set something in my mind and I can go after it and get it. But, you do have to, if you remove that and you didn't have it, like what's there? Like, is there a sense of lack? Is there a moving towards that because you actually are maybe not sure of who you are? So I'm trying to become a lot more conscious around that dynamic. And I think what that's probably revealed to me in more recent times is that life is here always now. It's always now, wherever you're going, whether it's into the future via thought or into the past. So you can enjoy life now. Like, you don't need to be dialed in and on the whole time. And I'm trying to work on that kind of balance constantly because I think like you look at like the self-help kind of industry, space, it's absolutely kind of fundamentally, I think, for the most part, maybe 95% of it is based on the presumption that like, here's not enough, now's not enough, I need to be going somewhere else, I need to be getting to the next level, to the next partner, to the next relationship. I'll be okay when I get this much money, but
I'll be happy when.
It's the trap that so many of us can fall into. So it's just really exploring what's beneath that, I think, has been really valuable for me. And to be honest, it's been an exploration that I've probably been on over the last 7-8 years. But at certain times, it's been maybe been a bit more in the forefront of my mind, and then at other times it's faded away. But I really, I'm trying to constantly work in that balance. I guess when you're trying to build something that's going to take time, it's very easy to get absorbed by that the whole time. But just taking
and not enjoy that moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think some of my most successful guests in the podcast have been great at delaying gratification and being patient. But that twinned with acknowledging that there is pleasure and purpose in the pursuit, and to enjoy the moments of the pursuit, not just the actual end result, is so key. And we got to know TJ Power through him coming on my show, and him, of course, loving Notox. Him and Georgia were big fans, which was great. And he talks about the different hormones. So dopamine is very much the effort hormone, and people assume they get dopamine when they achieve something, but it's actually during the time when you're working towards it that you're releasing the most dopamine. So those days when you're recording the ads and you're thinking about new ways to position things, there's actually a lot of really positive hormones and enjoyment come from that, rather than necessarily when you see that particular ad banged. That's a factor, but we've got to enjoy the process of doing these things, not just the end result. So one of the biggest ever deals that I closed was for 560k, but the meetings before it, where I booked the meeting, I got in touch with the guy on LinkedIn, got him in a Zoom call, went through it, did the site visit, positioned things in terms of my value versus my competitor. Then when I got the order, I was like elated, but it was everything within it. There was like little milestones to enjoy. And I definitely think that personality types, perhaps like yours and I's, where we're wanting to build something, it's very helpful to be reminded to enjoy the process and what we're doing. While there's maybe other people listening that do need to delay gratification, that are maybe shaking themselves out of the routine and the grind and the locked in mode too often. Yeah. So there's like two camps of people that need different messages at different times.
It's so true. Yeah. And I've probably been in both camps multiple times, probably more so when I was young in the camp where you're just not doing anything. And then maybe you get into the for me, it was professional rugby, and you realise that, like, you know, you're simply just not going to get picked if you don't maintain and keep improving yourself in the gym and all these things. But there's definitely two camps there, and yeah, probably sitting somewhere in the middle, or at least, you know, being able to come back to the middle to some degree is healthy, because, you know, I think a lot of it for me, like when it comes to like the pursuits and things that I'm going after in life, like it's genuinely just things that I'm actually interested in. Like, and even though you have to do a lot of work when you're in them, and at times it's maybe going to feel like a little bit of a drag, like when I ask myself the question, would I rather be doing something else? Probably not. You know, like, that's like, at least what my wife says to me, like when I'm sitting up at like 11 o'clock at night making ads and doing all these sorts of things, like I genuinely probably wouldn't want to be doing anything else. So it's like,
it's good, isn't it? I've got a quote I say on the podcast, and people that listen regularly will laugh down their AirPods or into their car stereo. Tim Cook said the tools will be heavy, but they'll feel light in your hands. And it's so true.
Yeah.
Like, there's certain people that couldn't imagine anything worse than being on the laptop at 11 o'clock making an ad, or maybe the stress of the ad accounts not working the way I wanted to, where you're like, oh, like you're in flow state doing it.
Yeah.
And it's so important that we find those different things that we feel are enjoyable. So for me, with the podcast, years and years and years of just working, but enjoying it the whole time, maybe without it breaking through the surface. It's probably in the last year, 18 months, where it's seen even more success and more sponsors in the show, more big guests. It's been amazing. But I loved the early days too, where I was researching an upcoming guest. I was enjoying the conversation I was having. And while that seems like a graft for a lot of people, I was enjoying the process of doing it. And I found something that I could feel fulfillment from that was beyond just potentially the money that's come down the line now. Yeah,
100%. Going after, I think, what you would love. Like, I mean, we're often so scared to do that. Like, we think it's like unachievable, but that was, you know, when you think back, when was it you started this?
2020, yeah.
2020. You know, that desire that you had, oh, maybe I'll start a podcast, and like here we are like 5 years later, like somehow like that's stayed alive the whole time. And I'm sure there's been like so many peaks and troughs and moments when you're like, oh, I don't know if I can do this anymore. But it's an amazing thing. I think when you align yourself with like something that you actually would love to do, how the work somehow a lot of the time becomes effortless. It's an interesting thing to observe.
You get into a flow state in particular things that you're good at, and I wish and I hope more people find those things. It doesn't have to be an ecom brand. It doesn't have to be a podcast. It doesn't have to be content creation. It doesn't have to be sales like me. It could be anything, but it's just making sure that those are moments in life where we're putting in what some people consider hard work, but you consider not play, but almost effortless, as you say.
Yeah. It's such an interesting conversation. Like the whole thing around like so many contradictions, I think, like, you know, around the whole like mindset and self-help and these spaces. Like, I speak about it with you all the time about you know, I've had mentors over the years. I've worked with some people in professional rugby teams who would probably be like considered some of the best teachers and guides. But there's a guy I've been working with, I've been speaking to you a bit more recently, a guy called Rob. It's like, Rob's just like a guy that like literally lives in Glasgow. He did really well. I think he did pretty well in business, sold his business, was like crazy obsessed with like gaining knowledge so that he could impact people in their lives. Worked with a guy called Bob Proctor, spent like, I think it was about $250,000 just acquiring all this information around like mindset, happiness, like how to actually kind of like subdue that like inner urge that we have to keep moving forward in life and building and chasing. And Rob kind of teaches now from the conclusion that like right here, right now in this moment, the self-help, he reckons the self-help world has things almost like back to front. We start at this position where we want to make changes in life. We want to go after something. And 95%, I think, of what's out there to, you know, help people or to, you know, guide people, I think is honestly based off that presumption. What if we've actually got it back to front, and that already right here, right now, before you could go and do anything or have done anything, you are actually inherently fulfilled? How would that change the journey that you're about to go on? How would that change your relationship to the the striving that is going to happen, because like in order to build something, you have to strive. But, you know, being able to take a step back from that, you know, when things do get stressful, to step back into, I guess, like the source of your power, your well-being, where you're, where I think so many of us place the power in the outcome. When I get to that point, when I exit the business, when I finally get 100K followers or find the relationship, you think it belongs there. Your mind convinces you that it belongs there. But actually, maybe it's closer to home than that. And that's maybe a little bit of maybe an optical illusion, you could call it. So yeah, it's so interesting. I'm someone who's always exploring and always looking for helpful things, and I guess trying to share them. And I guess that's what one thing we have in common. It's like, well, we're both passionate about optimizing the body, optimizing the brain, business, building. But it's it's almost like a 180-degree switch in the other direction, which is a contradiction. I think it was a contradiction for me because I've been caught in both camps multiple times throughout my life.
I think these are some of the most interesting conversations that we have, and it's also some of the most logically challenging questions that we have.
Challenging, yeah.
Because in layman's terms, some of what you're saying there is that these things that you're striving for are all well and good, but you are enough as you are just now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some people could take that as, I don't need to do anything. I don't need to do the work. But what the message truly is that you must become who you want to be internally, and it will help you achieve the things that you want externally.
Yeah.
And I think a phrase that we sent to each other over the weekend when we were both speaking was, some people have what they consider a do problem, but a lot of the time it's a be problem. So it's like, who are you fundamentally rather than what you do? And that sounds like we've maybe been having a lot of psychedelics to get to that point. But there is something there where if your identity is in alignment with the type of person and the type of things you want to work on, and we spoke about the word alignment earlier, then it makes some of the doing things easier and more congruent with that type of person that you want to be. And again, if people are really struggling with that, rewind and re-listen, because sometimes it's not about effort or strategy. It's about your subconscious identity of who you truly are,
who you
and being that.
Yeah, that's a really, really well framed up little bit you did.
It's
there.
so hard
like
it's so hard for us to communicate it, but I think if people really listen to that, they'll feel that easier.
Yeah, you've honestly done really well framing that up there. But it's like, I often think back to like all the things in my life, whether they mean good or bad. If I look at some of the biggest achievements, like there has literally been this like shift in identity that's taken place, where I have like at some point in time, I have stepped into this new identity, this kind of idea or this image that I've held in my awareness. I've stepped into it more of the time, and then all of a sudden, that was who I started to become. I was talking to you earlier on about the rugby thing, and you know, one of my favorite rugby players used to watch, and I literally would just watch him on YouTube. But this was back when YouTube was just probably kicking off, like, but the footage was there, and I had this desire and I had this dream and love of wanting to become a rugby player, and I would watch him because he inspired me, and I would feel that was me who was doing the thing that he was doing on the field that inspired me. And all of a sudden, like, it just built this like inner flame within me that there was true alignment. It was what he was doing, and there's what I wanted and would love to do. And it was almost like it became me, and things started to kind of unfold off the back of it. And you know, I love the saying, like, I can't remember who said it, but it's like what was it again? It's like, to become wealthy, or become truly rich, you have to become like rich before you actually get rich.
Yep.
And it's the same thing we're talking about here.
You have to become wealthy in the mind to become wealthy in money terms.
Yeah. And like, you still can like not be wealthy internally and get really rich. But the whole thing that is, I guess, attempted to be highlighted here is that, well, how does one path compare to the other when it's the ease of one path, and then the striving and like the, you know, you don't have to look far nowadays on social media and places like that. You know, there's everybody wants to become, and, you know, is trying to sort of aggrandize themselves, and, you know,
I think a term I would use, Adam, is validate.
Validate is a really good word, you know, like.
And I do think there's value in validating your self-image by becoming the guy that you say you are.
Yeah.
But again, difficult for me to say because people have heard me trying to push them to do great things on the podcast and encourage them to take action. But you may well be enough as you are just now. You just have to align that image with your ideal version of yourself and take time to get there. But as you're working your way there, be where your feet are.
Yeah, be where your feet are. It's honestly such a good way to put it. I think like we're chasing the tail from the wrong end, literally a lot of the time. And I think when you can begin to get quite clear on actually flipping that switch round there, that there's a real kind of abundance there that, you know, you can go out into the world and chase after what you love. But yeah, if you're doing it from lack, limitation, and being identified as a fragment, like there's just a different feel to that journey. Whereas I think like something that's massively helped me and you know, the whole transition out of rugby and even at difficult times through my career, difficult times in my life, is that, you know, that teaching of I guess like the having that self-awareness there and digging down a little bit underneath the surface to see, well, what's actually going on here? Like, you know, who am I? Like, am I confused about who I am? Or, you know, and answering that question, it's been powerful. So yeah, shout out Rob Begg. He's a pretty incredible guy.
Yeah, since you started working with him, and I think you were introduced by Fergus Scott as
yeah,
well.
Fergus was literally like
too.
on me for 2 years. Like, you need to speak to this guy. You need to go and speak to him. No, I'm busy. I've got stuff on.
You were open-minded to it though because of the stuff that you've done before, recognizing identity, recognizing habits and routines, and alignment between those two. So when you spoke to Rob, you were ready. Whereas I think if you're encountered by this idea for the first time, is a bit of
it's quite confronting.
I've introduced ideas around identity with some of the sales guys that I coach actually, because when I spoke about moving from insurance into furniture, I was told that you can earn 6 figures of commission here if you deliver 7 figures of revenue. So I was like, right, okay, I'm going to become the 7-figure sales guy that earns 6 figures. So I had to match my habits, my behaviors and routines in terms of how many calls I was making, how many meetings I was holding, how good my product knowledge was, how resilient was I, how well could I communicate. And I had to become that guy, but I had to act like that guy before I became that guy. So you spoke about stepping into that new identity.
You have to delude yourself to some degree.
That's right.
But again, we have so much faith in the past and future stories that it's very confrontational to actually, it's not deluding yourself, but it's telling yourself the story that you want to, it's telling yourself what you want to be. Like, that's essentially what it is. And I think that's like, it's faith, isn't it? It's having faith. Where are you putting your faith? Are you putting your faith in the stories in the past and things that have happened? Or are you putting your faith in actually what you'd love? Because that's what we are.
More leads, more meetings, more quotes, more proposals, and closing a higher percentage of those. That's exactly what it's time to unlock with my sales masterclass. I've distilled down over 15 years of sales experience across B2B and B2C into some actionable lessons which you can benefit from. Clients that I've worked with one-to-one over the last 6 to 18 months have had incredible results, and it's now time for me to share with you an easier way to work with me rather than on a one-to-one basis. To get involved, hit the link in the show notes or under this description wherever you're watching this to join today's waiting list, and there's even some free goodies in there for you while you wait for the course to go live. Something I wrote down was, thinking you go somewhere new based on old thinking is foolish.
Yeah.
And it really is. So for example, you're trying to go somewhere new with this huge ecom brand in the health and wellness space. If you didn't evolve your thinking with how you structure your ads, how you grow the business, how you manage the margins, all these new things that you've learned really strenuously in the last 9 months, albeit you had some background knowledge beforehand, then how could you ever get to the next stage? And you're talking about, we're scratching the surface with Notox, and there's a danger there that we're talking about the future, but you know what's possible as long as you keep stepping into those new identities, which will unlock those new levels and those new floors and those new ceilings.
Yeah, that is going to be key. And I think, yeah, I guess having done it, God knows how many times, makes you sound like a bit bipolar or something, doesn't it? But
well, I was joking with you when we did our first episode. I was like, DJing, coaching, rugby player, Puresport founder, Zapati investor, and probably loads of other investments we didn't even speak about.
Yeah,
you've worn so many hats.
I know, I probably have, to be honest, but I don't know. I won't place a finger on why that is. I honestly just think I'm open-minded to explore things, and I'm willing to follow my heart. That's probably been a big factor in it. But I feel like that's the name of the game. Like, you know, I've got a lot of mates that are still sort of in the rugby circle and playing, and I speak to them often. There's often so much fear about this stepping out into this new reality where you don't have the game and stuff. But
that's a real stripping of identity, though.
It is a real stripping of identity, but life seems to be this journey of like building an identity, stripping it and shedding it, building it. It's really all it is the whole time, just over and over again. So, and these boys have done that multiple times. They knew that when they were 15 years old and they were the insecure kid and they weren't sure if they were good enough, and then they became the Lions player. Like, you know, we can have faith. They can absolutely have faith in where they're moving forward.
Yeah, I wonder how helpful that sort of coaching from somebody like Rob or reading Bob Proctor's work would be for some of those guys to help with that transition.
Yeah.
Because it's a real, like, I spoke to Rory Lawson last October and he was speaking about post-retirement coming early with an injury with his wrist at Newcastle. It's such a shock to the system. And Rory's somebody that captained Scotland, so he's got a profile, so he's likely to have opportunities open up. But it's not that simple unless you've thought about it.
Yeah, no, it's a complicated time, and it often takes time to kind of adjust and get your head around it.
You're 2.5 years out now, I think.
I'm 2.5 years out of rugby, but that year was coaching, so I guess I'm like 3.5 years out playing. Yeah, to be honest, like, I'm probably only really just like properly finding my feet now. Like, and I guess in the sense that like I'm very absolutely aligned with where I'm going over the next few years. So it takes time, but you know, I think there's a lot of fear around that too. And like, you know, I'm just not convinced that we need to drum up that much fear. I think that we should speak about what should be done to absolutely make it easier. But I think from the perspective that we're talking about now, when you actually recognize what we're saying, what we're trying to convey, which is so helpful for me and you, just when we're talking about it, it does kind of allow you to relax a little bit rather than being that person who is solely identified as whatever it is that you are in that moment. Like, that can change.
Things can shift really fast as well. And we opened this conversation laughing how much has changed in 18 months, let alone 9 months from January to now, with like people now are speaking to you, oh, Mr. Notox or Mr. Beef Towel, whereas nobody would have ever even considered that because you weren't doing anything in that field. So people's perception of you and your own perception of yourself can shift massively depending on how you allocate your time and energy across a very, very short period indeed. Like, you see people make massive fitness transformations in 8 to 12 weeks and people see you differently when you're leaner, meaner, more muscular because of the shift that you've made. So think about that in any area of life where you apply yourself, whether it's your brain, your body, your business. You can be radically different in a very short period of time if you step into that new version of yourself.
Yeah, and just think about that. How exciting is that? Like that
it's
I know
empowering.
It's empowering, it's exciting. Just to highlight and talk about this stuff. Like, it's maybe not as straightforward as we're saying here, because it probably takes quite a lot of conscious effort and self-awareness, but it should be excitement, you know. Like, ultimately the body gets to a certain point in sport and it probably can't go much further. We know it's coming, but there's plenty more life to be lived, and I think we need to get behind the excitement of it more so than the fear.
What's been your process for really opening your mind up in this way? I know is it weekly calls with Rob that you get? How often are you kind of thinking about these ideas? Because they take a little while to seep in, don't they?
You just completely forget them unless you're like kind of trying to be aware of them, because the mind is just doing its own thing, off on a tangent, thinking about ads. But yeah, honestly, like so when I was playing rugby and I was sort of like at this point in my career where I was like my identity was just heavily invested as the rugby player. And then things started to happen. My career was on the rise. All of a sudden, a couple of rugs were pulled from under the carpet, and you're like, I don't know if I can like invest my whole sort of being and happiness in this, because ultimately it can be taken away at any point. So that was really probably the first question, and that came to, well, who am I? Like, what actually am I? And then over the years, it was like a kind of learning and a revisiting of different books, podcasts, teachers. But what I would say is that I found a lot of it really confusing. There probably was quite a lot of confusion at times, because, you know, often these, like what we're talking about here, this awakening thing, it's not, there's not often conversations where like some guy in business the world that you know of sales is talking about this stuff, so you can't really like tie them together. So I found it often like quite confusing, and I found it liberating and freeing at times. But it was only really actually when I feel like I met Rob probably like, I don't know, 6 months ago or something, that he was like piecing all these different parts of the puzzle together that actually made sense. It's like, well, you know, if you've got your own business, like from the perspective that we're talking about here, this open perspective, if that was true for you, and if you kind of came to that understanding, how would you behave moving forward from here? You know, what would your family life look like? And all of a sudden, things start to kind of fall into place. So, yeah, it was just like a kind of journey for me more than anything. And I don't know how many like levels to this thing are, but it seems to be, again, like anything, constantly.
We're gonna keep going.
It's constantly, there's more and more getting revealed the whole time. So I think that, yeah, I don't know, I'm passionate about it. Like I love what you're doing on here, because like this is a passion of mine, is the kind of optimization of the human experience, and the opening of the mind, and kind of digging down underneath there. And that's again why I actually had my own podcast as well, because I was really interested in human potential and people. And I think that, you know, although I am building this business now and kind of all in with doing that, I dare say that, you know, whenever that path comes to the end, there's still going to be that. I know that this interest is not going to go away.
There's an itch to scratch, isn't there?
There's absolutely more that I'm passionate about learning, and I will learn more. So we'll see what it takes me, but it's definitely been a big part of my life.
Yeah, I think when you look at your success, which appears to be really fast with Notox, it makes even more sense if you understand where your head's been at and how ready you were to do it. Because I think when somebody's ready to take a massive step and a massive leap and to progress really quickly, everything needs to be ready to do so, otherwise it falls apart.
Yeah, you really need to be aligned. Like if you don't have that alignment, I don't know how you could even say it. It's like your being literally has to be all in with this idea and concept, and then you go and you put the foot down, and I think you can move pretty quick. But I think the times for me in life where maybe like, it's hard to use examples, but I maybe had something that I wanted to do, but there just wasn't that alignment, and it maybe never transpired as fast.
It was a nice to do, not a must do.
Exactly.
There's a big difference there.
Yeah, it's exactly it. You know, think about when I wanted to become a professional rugby player and I wanted to get a contract at Glasgow Warriors. Like, you know, you're out there training and playing, and you'll jump in front of a bus if it means that, you know, you're going to perform well and your team's going to win. And it really, that's that same alignment. It's like your whole being is invested. You don't care about the safety of your body. You don't care about what people are going to say about you when they see this popping up. You're doing it, and that's it. And it is that alignment. It's maybe it's not happened that many times in life, but when it does, like, you feel it.
People need to chase that though. I think that's, you feel way more fulfilled day to day when you're doing the things that give you that buzz.
100%, yeah. And I think like the place to start with it is literally just asking yourself, what would you love? Like, what would you love to do? And then seeing what happens. Let's
finish on a question like that then, Adam. So you and I are both in our early 30s. We'll say early because I'm 33 this year, which is terrifying. But what would you love to be doing and spending your time and your energy on by the time you're 40?
I don't think I'm ever going to stop working. My mum told me my granddad was a workaholic. I knew him. He lived in Italy up in the mountains. He was chopping wood till the day he died, literally. So I'll be doing something, but I hope that as time goes on, I get to do more of the things that I love. That's probably going to change, but I've got a family now, you know, like spending more time with them.
Watching diggers with Conrad.
Taking Conrad to stand at building sites to watch diggers. He seems to love that at the moment, but hey, that's fun. But I guess, like, you know, I think as more I kind of align myself with this perspective, it becomes more clear to me, like, you know, what it is that I would love. And of course, like, you know, my main focus at the moment is absolutely, undoubtedly trying to build a really effective business that genuinely helps people. And I do think that we can do that. At some point, that will probably finish or stop or move on elsewhere. But, you know, at that point, I would like to hope I'd be even more aligned with doing the things every day as often as I possibly can that I really, truly do love doing. So I don't know how to answer the question more than that, but My wife will tell you it's probably going to be staying at home and helping her look after the kids a bit more. We'll see if that's the case.
No, it's cool because I mean, even we talked about Notox. There's so many more levels to go. Like I was telling you how many messages I had about the SPFF because I've shared this on the podcast before. My mum had breast cancer during 2017, 2018, and one of the first things we started looking at were some of the maybe cancerogenic things that she was taking in, and one of them was sun cream, and that's so counterintuitive. So when I was talking about like natural sun creams, zinc-based sun creams, and I posted one on my story when I was away on holiday with one of the prototypes that we had, the inquiry was so high. So we know there's so many more different product ranges and things to go into with Notox, and the demand and the energy will change as we go, and it'll be a long time before you maybe complete that leg of the journey.
Oh, 100%. There's literally so much to be done. Like I'm the type of person that I literally have 1,000 ideas a week. You know, my sister who runs the sort of manufacturing side of the business constantly pulling me back. Like, just like, here now, let's fix this thing here and stop. I'm thinking about the future. I'm thinking all this stuff. But there's lots more that can be done. You know, yeah, I don't want to give too much away, but I really do feel that there's a range here and a load of products there that I think there's a real need and desire for, that slowly people are starting to become more conscious of why they are needed. So yeah, let's do it. Let's see where it takes us.
100%, Adam. I've loved having you back on, mate. Where should the listeners head towards if they want to continue the conversation with you?
Just Instagram. Probably just type in my name. Actually, don't know what my handle is.
I'll pop it in the show notes. Pop your LinkedIn there as well.
Yeah, on there. Or equally, you know, we're speaking about Notox. We're going to be rebranding. We're rebranding.
Okay.
So I'm not going to say what we're rebranding as, but that'll be coming out in the next 3-4 months.
Yeah, cool. I'll pop the links to your socials. Adam, thank you for coming on the show. And thank you to the listener. I'll be back to speak to you again very, very soon.